Welcome, and happy Victory Tuesday, Cleveland Browns fans, followers of the OBR and the OBR streaming network. My name is Joe Mazzullo. This is my man, Pete Smith. Pete, how you doing today? Happy Victory Tuesday. How was your weekend?
Well, when you put it all together, it's pretty good. Browns win, obviously. Jaguars lose, which makes me very happy. I already had the Steelers lose, even if I think Thursday Night Football is a farce. That was all pretty good. And college football is pretty good.
Yeah. Amen to that. So we had some funky weather. I don't think it was quite as bad as it was initially thought to be, but certainly played a part in the whole process. I don't think the winds ever got to the 40s and 50s like we heard about, and the rain subsided for the second half. But and we talked about this on Sunday, it was kind of an uneven outcome just because between the opponent and the weather, neither one of us felt like we learned anything about this team.
Well, offensively, to be clear, offensively, definitely didn't stuff about the defense. No, going into this game, or I should say all these games right now, with the amount of young players, particularly at quarterback and receivers, like everything we want to learn about this team involves throwing the football and those elements. And to immediately go into a forecast where they're talking about wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour and rain and all this other stuff. And look, I hate how the Dome was ultimately funded, but I cannot wait for Dome football because I hate this. We do this every year. There's at least one home game every year that is just garbage football to watch in terms of the product. I know everybody gets super psyched. We got lucky last year with the snow game with Jameis Winston and all that, which is a lot of fun, but so often they're just crap to watch. Yeah. And I want to watch real games. And like the other part about this is like, if you are somebody who's sitting there going, man, I can't, fast forward to when you have a quarterback you really do like and a passing game you really do like. And you're sitting there going, man, I can't wait to watch, insert quarterback throw to insert other receiver, Jordan Tyson. When you get a home game just wiped out like that, it sucks. And then, you get into the whole, if you're somebody who's paying, thousands of dollars for season tickets, and this is sort of what you have to go sit in, it's miserable. So I sympathize for those people too, but just from a watching the game standpoint, I get the spectacle, but for me, weather games, they're way more fun when they involve other teams.
Yes, I was just going to say that. It's amazing when it's not your team in there, whether it's a snow game or a rain game. It's fun because it's like all consequence free. But yeah, I mean, look, the weather is funky with it. And Pete, I don't know if I'm sure you remember this. You're an encyclopedia, like I like to fancy myself as. But you remember in 2020, right? We had a stretch of like a month and a half, like the Philadelphia game, the Houston game. Like all these games were like unbelievably cold and windy. It's like it took, throwing the ball almost entirely out of the equation. And that was before Baker really hit his stride and went on that run. So it's like through that whole process, it's like, we don't really know about Baker. He's not doing much. Well, he can't because the weather prohibits it, So it's like when it comes to the, analysis aspect of it, there's really not much to gain from these games for Dillon Gabriel in terms of what we're learning and what we're actually seeing him do.
Yeah, I remember 2020. That was the year that they played the Houston Texans at home in a ridiculous weather game to the point where First Energy was like wiped out all over state of Ohio, and the game was played at their namesake stadium. And all kinds of people, including myself, could not watch it. I had to listen to a radio in my car, waiting for this game. And then ultimately, you get the chug run. But it's just not entertaining to watch. You don't learn anything. And so there are things I can sort of look at this and get frustrated by in terms of the quarterback play and some of the other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a slog. And the two teams combined for 200 passing yards total. It's tough.
Yeah, agreed. So before we get into our positional breakdown, guys, we know you follow the OBR and the OBR streaming network, but get on over to OBR.com. Be sure to subscribe. Between the constant information and constant articles being thrown at you, you've got the Insider Forums, you got Ask the Insider Forums, where you can basically, get the exact answers that you're looking for these situations. You got Barry McBride running the whole thing, Fred Greetham, Lane Atkins, Pete Smith doing all the due diligence, boots on the ground in Berea. Be sure to check out OBR.com. All right, so we're going to start with quarterback. Now, from where I was sitting, Pete, it looked like not only were they protecting Gabriel with how they called this game, but they almost wanted the ball out of his hands in the most important situations, like the wildcat down at the goal line, all that stuff. How did you take away this game plan with Stefanski and what they were trying to do?
Well, on the one hand, it seemed like they were trying to utilize more with his legs and stuff. Had a couple of boots, including one where a couple of plays where he just carried the ball out and ran. It's another game where I saw plays that I want him to make that aren't being made. There were a couple of situations where I thought he showed poor awareness. Let's start with plays he didn't make. First drive, they end up in the red zone. Third down, Jerry Jeudy runs an in-breaking route, looked like a slant. Jerome Ford is running like, what you would call a rail route, just a wheel out of the backfield. Jerry Jeudy gets destroyed by a defender, which, okay, fine. Jerome Ford is wide open in the end zone. And I don't know if Dillon Gabriel is trying to throw that ball to Jerry Jeudy and then thinks better of it and sort of catches himself and throws it to the ground, or if the ball fell out of his hand as he's trying to throw it to Jerome Ford. Regardless, plays there to be made. Browns don't make it, and they have to settle for a field goal. And look, in this game, it did not matter.
Yeah.
But particularly for about the first quarter, it really didn't feel like the Browns had control of this game at all. In fact, there was a point where I thought the Dolphins were going to start taking control of the game.
Yeah.
And that amplified it. So there was that. There was obviously a situation where I don't hate it too much. Quinshon Judkins is sort of running up the sideline, and Dillon Gabriel seemingly could have thrown a ball to him and then ultimately pulls it down and keeps it. Now, look, because it's not as high pressure or, a huge like this or bust type play.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it if he didn't have a great grip or he didn't trust it in the weather and he pulls it down and runs it. I don't hate it, but better weather, ball's got to come out and hit that. The awareness stuff that concerned me was the most notable example. They're pinned back at their own end, and he takes a really bad sack. And immediately you see flags on the field. The commentators are thinking it's a holding in the end zone and it's a safety. And they get lucky. It's not. He's out of the end zone, but that is a sack he cannot take. And at that point in the game, had he gotten a safety, the Browns had to take that free kick and give it back to the Dolphins. That was an opportunity for them to get right back in the football game.
Absolutely.
And put themselves, within a handful of points at that point. There were just a couple situations where I felt like he just took some sacks he shouldn't take, and the ball's got to come out, or a decision has to be made, throwaway or something. And for all the things you want to say about Dillon Gabriel, he's smart. He processes quickly. This, that, and the other. Those are the situations where it's okay, if this is what we're going to be, this is what we're going to hang our hat on, then we got to be better than what we're seeing here.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And that's kind of what has been his championed quality this whole time, is the fact that he's not going to make mistakes. He's going to be quick and decisive. He's going to be accurate, and he's going to move the offense. And, fair or unfair, we haven't really seen it. He hasn't been given a ton of opportunities, especially a ton of good opportunities. He's had some really tough matchups. And, hopefully, things get a little bit easier from there. But this New England defense is very, very good. They're strong against the run. So this weekend's going to be a Dillon Gabriel game. If we win, it's going to be because Dillon Gabriel was able to make some plays.
I agree with that. I don't know if New England's defense is necessarily good so much. It has a couple of very talented players that could be problematic. But nevertheless, your point stands. We saw late in the game one opportunity where he tried to go deep to Jerry Jeudy. It was good to see. Obviously, they didn't connect. And again, weather and all this other stuff. I'll be honest, I was pissed at Kevin Stefanski. 4th and 6, and he took the delay of game. They were on the 43 line. The Dolphins, just go for it. We need the reps. It's a good situation to get him some, another play in sort of a high leverage situation, just to do stuff. And it felt like once partly because it felt like Kevin Stefanski had worked his ass off in terms of calling plays that were going to work in this game. That once they got control of the game, he's like, I'm not using anything else.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
saving it all. That's
Yeah.
part of the reason he went ahead and took the delay game. But I was outraged on 4th and 6 in their end to go ahead and take the punt. But yeah, it just I want to see it. There were a couple times it looked like Dillon Gabriel was legitimately looking down the field and then opted not to pull the trigger. But yeah, I agree 1,000% on the idea that if the Browns are going to beat the New England Patriots, he's got to take a step forward. We've got to start really seeing some progress in that end. You know, unless the Patriots do what they did against the Steelers, and by the way, I'd love that 5 fumbles.
Yeah.
You're going to need to score points, and you're going to need him to deliver because the Patriots are undoubtedly going to say Quinshon Judkins is not going to beat us. So the rookie's got to do it. So, you know, on the one hand, I sort of look at this game and go, the weather is what it is. They got the win. And then you get another week of practice. Hopefully you guys can get this thing going a little bit more. And then hopefully we're going to get some stuff going when it matters on the road against the Patriots.
Yeah. So the thing is with Gabriel too, just being a young quarterback, and regardless of how advanced he is for a rookie and how many reps he had at, you know, Oregon, Oklahoma, and UCF and all that stuff, he's still a rookie in the NFL. There's still a sizable acclimation period. No matter how prepared you are, you're never fully prepared. So like we can expect him to slowly and steadily get better and better and better. I hope that we start seeing some genuine signs of it. I feel like we had a chance against Miami if the weather wasn't as impactful as it was. But either way, I mean, you don't get to pick and choose your opponents. You got to play who you got to play. It's going to be a tough test for sure. And I think like we're in the same spot with Shedeur. We're both excited to eventually see him, but don't really see it happening anytime soon. As Gabriel's show for the time being, and until, you know, he proves that he's definitely not the guy. I think, you know, they're going to keep trotting him out even post-bye, despite what I would like to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, we saw some flashes. The ball that went to Jamari Thrash on the field was nice.
Yeah.
You know, that was their one explosive play. But yeah, they need to see more. And the thing is, all I can evaluate is what I see from Dillon Gabriel. And I clearly the answer is we need more. I'm sure Kevin Stefanski loves the fact he's not turning over the ball. In the past 3 games, the Browns are +6 turnover differential. So now they're back to even, which is
amazing.
You know, great.
Yeah.
But at some point, he's got to start. It can't just be do no harm. He's got to actually advance this thing, because if that's the case, then I see about 3 more wins on the schedule, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Short of, you know, huge performance from defense, scoring points and special teams and all that. So that is one element. The Dillon Gabriel, is he going to sort of take steps forward and go, versus the element I cannot evaluate, which is what is Shedeur doing in the building and in the practice field, because he's obviously on his own development curve. Because if at some point they feel like Shedeur is getting to a point where it's worth putting him out there, and Dillon Gabriel is still in a point where it's just basically we're not getting anything more. We're just getting sort of, you know, nothing negative, but really nothing positive either, which ends up being negative.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, I mean, at that point, you're going to have to pull the trigger and make getting this going. And only, you know, the team knows and those guys in the building know just where Shedeur's at. But there has to be some sort of internal pressure just from Dillon Gabriel himself that we've got to do more than what I'm doing so far.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So before we get into running backs, be sure to check out Browns 3D, weekly 6 p.m. Every day of the week. Jeff Lloyd's a one-man show. He's fantastic, hard-hitting Browns action, Browns news, all that stuff from a unique perspective. So check out Jeff Lloyd and Browns 3D, 6 p.m. Monday through Friday on the OBR streaming network. Okay, Pete, I mean, I feel like this is our favorite guy to talk about on this show, Quinshon Judkins, man. He brings it. He brings it every single week. And it's a pleasure to watch. He had another huge touchdown run. The guy's explosiveness is off the charts. He's got good vision. He's got great feet. He can do it all, man. He's exciting to watch.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Browns didn't get a ton of rushing production, and there's some reasons for that. But like there was a notable difference between this game and the Steelers game. the Steelers game, you could see there was absolutely nothing. Here, you could see the two big runs coming before they happened. Like you could see, like, you know, the one where he bends it back outside, makes a couple cuts where Jamari Thrash gets a really nice crack block. You can see him setting this stuff up. On that power where he scores a 46-yard touchdown, you can see the second he's through the hole, you're like, oh man, this is it. Now, it's also the tackle. That certainly did not hurt my feelings at all. But he's incredibly skilled. The speed, the power, all those things. And now the question isn't, can he run the ball? It's how else can the Browns get him involved in the did pass down the sideline that Gabriel didn't throw, but we've got to see more of that in terms of just finding different ways to get involved in the offense. And the fact that even if you don't like Jerome Ford, you can at least say Jerome Ford, Dylan Sampson, and Quinshon Judkins are all guys you can put on the field and not feel uncomfortable with, so that if you want to put Jerome Ford in the backfield and Quinshon Judkins out wide or something, you have the ability to do that, to at least show like Jerome Ford could potentially get the ball and it's not like a complete giveaway that you're throwing it.
Yeah. Agreed. And, you know, they worked. I mean, they had plenty of reps to go around because they were able to move the ball a little bit, sustain some drives. So you got Dylan Gabriel. You got Dylan Sampson getting some carries. You got him to see him getting some work in the base offense, everything like that. And then I had a tough time with that first drive when they gave Jerome Ford the ball inside the 5 instead of Quinshon. And like, I get it. You know, he has the appearance of a passing or a blocking back. So when you have him back there, it's almost like catch him off guard with a draw. I had a tough time with that play call.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is like whenever you have a guy like Quinshon Judkins, it puts you in this position where anytime he's not getting the ball and the guy who they do give the ball to doesn't do great. We did this with Nick Chubb too, where it's like, you know, anytime it was, you know, if Kareem Hunt didn't do well or whoever it was, you're like, well, why was it
the other guy?
Yeah. So, I mean, look, you know, I like the fact that they put Dylan Sampson out wide in this game. I like the fact that they were willing to go with the Wildcat down the red zone. I thought that was smart. And I don't take this as a shot at Dylan Gabriel. I take this as less guys to touch the ball in the conditions is good for your offense.
Yeah.
And I also take a little bit of, listen, show me who you are in terms of they know you're coming. Win. And they were fortunately able to do that. I mean, the Browns offense as a whole was still craptacular.
Yeah.
However, they were really good in the red zone. They had 3 red zone opportunities, 17 total points out of it. And the 2 times they went with Judd. That's fine. If you've got a guy who's that good, which Quinshon Judkins is clearly passing all those tests so far, why even? I don't have a problem with not pretending in that situation. I mean, it's not like that was your only play call. You had.
All right, so let's move on to wide receiver now. Okay, so it was almost a complete non-factor in the passing game. The leading receiver was a tight end. So Jerry Jeudy, I think, got a couple of targets. Jamari Thrash got a target. Not a lot going on through the air. Tough to really take anything home from the receivers from this game, no?
Only in terms of, like, I know some people were like looking at Isaiah Bond's usage and being like, well, that clearly means he's not doing well. And maybe that's true, but also I think it was just looking at the weather and going like, what are we really going to be chucking the ball downfield to Isaiah Bond? Is this an Isaiah Bond game?
Yeah.
No, but Malachi Corley is like 200 pounds.
Yep.
And we can get some use out of him. And 1, he blocks. And 2, I love the design on the screen to get him the ball underneath, which went for 17 yards. So like some of that stuff, I was really, I liked their screen game in this. And again, to me, this sort of illustrated just how hard the offensive staff has to work to get this offense like to look decent, which is really frustrating on one hand and sort of shows you just how like where they're at right now. Having said that, like I like that we're seeing a little bit more of Jamari Thrash. I think he's doing decently well as a route runner and those type of things. And obviously the thing's always going to be getting Jerry Jeudy involved. But like in this game, it was okay. They seemed to take him away enough. And, it wasn't really a heavy wide. They were able to be successful with it. Obviously that's got to be a concern and something you're always trying moving forward. But this was this is a tight end game for the most part. And the stuff they did with the receivers, I thought was reasonable. I thought was well planned and largely executed pretty well. I mean, one of the things that came out of this game was the Browns committed basically little, if any, penalties. Now, some of this I always will put on the fact that part of the reason teams have penalties is because the other team's really talented and they are worried about that.
Yeah.
And some of this may be the fact that the Browns were not scared of the Dolphins all that much and therefore committed less penalties, but also they were reasonably disciplined, smart, and all those things where they were putting themselves in a position not to have penalties, stay on schedule, and do the things they needed to do.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, like we talked about last week, whatever you have to do, find a way to win this game. Start stacking wins, start building some progress, and get the people calling for the jobs out of the equation. Just get a win. Whatever you have to do, get out of this weekend with a win. And they did. And regardless of how protective they were with Gabriel, they should be. He's a rookie in horrible weather. You got a strong running game, and you have zero fear of what the opposing team is going to do offensively. So hell yeah, button it up, be conservative, don't you shoot yourself in the foot, and win the game.
I mean, the story of the game is turnovers, 4-0. I mean, the Dolphins gave away the game. I mean, one of the things that sort of was a risk and put the Browns in sort of a little bit of a position of weakness early was the fact that the Dolphins basically just ran their offense. Not quite all the way, but they were not afraid to throw now passes and throw the ball around and do those things. And initially it looked like the Browns were going to have a problem with that because, there is that element where when it's that type of weather, it sometimes favors the offense because they have better footing and know where they're going. Yeah. That didn't end up playing out that way in large part because the field drained so well. But yeah, I mean, I think the Browns being like they played to the weather. You could argue maybe too much because the weather didn't I think play out the way they thought it might. I mean, partly look when the Browns took the toss and said we're going to receive. I thought that was Kevin Stefanski being like, "Oh crap, the weather's going to get way worse in the second half, and we want to make sure we have the wind at our back in the second half where we want it. So we're going to take the ball now." It ended up being the opposite where the weather ended up being better in the second half. But I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know if, nobody asked him specifically if that was the case. It was basically, why'd you take the ball? And they basically he just gave you that boilerplate answer of it just depends on all the factors.
Yeah. All right. So let's shuffle over to tight ends real quick. And, again, the little asterisk next to all this stuff, just a kind of a funky game to really break down. But it was our first game without David Njoku to see how they were going to feature Harold Fannin, where if they were going to put him in the backfield as much as they did and stuff like that. Him and Whiteheart pretty much just ran things, right? They had a third tackle out there as a tight end. I think it was Whippler, actually, this game that they used as a tight end in some bigger formations, no? Are you not getting me, Pete?
They used both Whippler and then Tevin Jenkins got 4 snaps and apparently dominated in his 4 snaps if you go by PFF. But yeah, look, they didn't have enough tackles to keep putting in. If they put in another tackle, like that was all their tackles at one point, so they couldn't really do it that way. So they went and put Whippler in there. Didn't do great in that standpoint. They also did some stuff where they moved him to like an extra guard at one point, which was interesting. I think it was a way to try to less. Yeah, I mean, they used everybody. They used all hands on deck.
All right. So I'm trying to think now. So moving forward, we've got Conklin and Njoku are still questionable, right? Njoku with the knee and Conklin with the concussion. And now Cedric Tillman's got one more game, and then he can come back after the bye week, right, with the Jets?
Yeah, so I mean, it's one of those situations where, we'll see with how that works, but it wouldn't shock me if they lean on the conservative end, just because they're going to get the bye week for some of these guys, and say we'll go ahead and give them the extra week.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, if they can go, it's certainly, if the Browns can go and somehow pull out a win, then they're going to be in really good shape. I mean, if they can get to 3-5 heading the bye week, they have to feel good about themselves, especially coming out of that with the Jets. So to be determined, but I mean, at least if they can get Conklin back, that would mean they can have these back to Cam Robinson and Jack Conklin, which would be the same starting five for at least a second game at some point this season.
Yeah, which would be nice. Would absolutely be nice. All right. Well, before we, actually, no. Let's talk about the offensive line right now. Right. So Conklin's still kind of up in the air for this weekend. How did you feel Cornelius Lucas did on the right side?
I mean, he's limited by his ankle and foot that he's been dealing with since the summer. The thing is, like, for me, I think the offensive line was okay. It's like, and it looked bad because the Dolphins are just piling as many guys as they can get on the line of scrimmage. And like, when the opponent can do that, unless you have an amazing front, you're going to have some problems. So I think we're getting to a point now where the limitations on offense, as however mediocre and problematic you think some of the offensive linemen are, and I grant all of those things, I think we're at a point now where, like, we're just putting them in a really bad spot in some of these situations, and you're going to get some run throughs. You're going to get some leakage doing that. So I think largely in the first half, they were good as a unit. I think once we got sorted in the second half and the Browns basically said, screw it, we're not really doing anything, it was a whole lot easier for the Dolphins to get some tackles for loss.
Yeah.
He lost several, he had a bunch of runs in the backfield, I think. But like in the first half, they were much better. Obviously, they had a couple big runs. And the fact of the matter is, with Cornelius Lucas, they kept rotating. I mean, they were literally rotating right tackles in this game.
Yeah. Well, Lucas is more of a pass protector anyway. And
Yes.
this is a lineup and, blow the man opposite of you off the ball and, get the running game going, all that. So it just wasn't a great fit altogether. But I agree with you. This is my number one issue that I have with Dillon Gabriel right now. And I mean, whether it's fair or unfair, I think it's the reality of the situation. I don't think he scares anybody defensively. And I think defenses are basically just going to load up the box and take away Q and say, beat us with Dillon Gabriel. And I don't know Gabriel has not had an answer yet. And that's kind of the hope, right? Is that he finds one moving forward. Because this is the game plan. If you're playing the Cleveland Browns, that's what you do.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would do. I would say Dillon Gabriel's got to beat us. And not only that, he's got to prove that he's going to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field with any consistency, because simply didn't throw the ball there. I mean, Isaiah Bond in particular was open on some situations, or at least was worth a shot. So I'm this was the other frustration I had with the weather. It's like we didn't get to see if he was going to take that, learn from that, and try to stretch the field. So now we sit here and wait and hope that it's going to happen this week. And against a team that's going to be perhaps more difficult to do that against than the New England Patriots.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we do the really fun part of this show, when we break down the Browns defense, just a heads up, guys, you want to check out the Browns Beat Weekly, Wednesdays at 7:00. You got Fred Greetham and Michael O'Keefe. These guys are fantastic. They have a weekly guest every week, so be sure to check out the Browns Beat. Okay, Pete, let's talk defensive line, man. I mean, obviously, Miles had a nice game. Miles had a sack. I think this was the best game I've ever seen Alex Wright play. Alex Wright was all over the field. He was very active. I like that. Mason Graham made some nice plays. What do you think about the D-line?
The Alex Wright conversation is really interesting because on the one hand, they did zone dogs and all these other things, and he looks really good playing basically a linebacker position. Like he's really good in space, running around and making tackles.
Yeah.
He had a number of plays. You're like, is that Alex Wright tracking that down? Now, on the other hand, his pass rush win rate for this game out of 9 opportunities, 0.0. So like he is in a lot of ways, he and Isaiah McGuire have become like the exact same player. Except Isaiah McGuire is a little bit more effective as a pass rusher, but both guys are basically really good run pluggers. But you know, I'm hoping one of these guys going to take a big step forward. But I really like this game for Alex Wright because if nothing else, it showed you the viability of being able to do some of the things that they were trying to do with this. Where he can play in space. He doesn't look awkward trying to chase down a running back or a quarterback or whatever.
He's a big kid too. That's a big man moving like that.
Myles Garrett, continues to be great, and I was happy to see him moving around. And this is one of those where I now come out of this game with a question, because I'm always for moving Myles Garrett around and finding the best possible matchup. And then, the suggestion is that Myles Garrett sort of gets to pick where he goes, but then like they change all this stuff up, at least seemingly, perhaps in part because of Myles Garrett complaining that they aren't being aggressive enough and doing some of these things. So like, what's the real story? Is Myles Garrett stubborn and wanting to play at that right end spot, or does he really want to move around? And if that's the case, like, what are we doing? Like, why are we not moving him around constantly? Because he is such a problem. I thought Mason Graham was fantastic. I thought this was a game where he was going to dominate. The Miami Dolphins have really bad guard play.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good in that element. Malik Collins, curiously, not great in this game. He was fine, but like he's hit 2 weeks in a row where he has not been all that good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, the group as a whole, effective, not great in terms of the pass rush stuff. But again, this is another game where you're playing a quarterback who's trying to get the ball out as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah.
So that's problematic. And then you're basically grading them against the run. And yes, Devin Achane had some plays, but whether it was the run or what I'm going to basically factor into the run, which is that quick horizontal passing game where Alex Wright made another great play where he's able to pursue and get to the ball.
Yeah.
That stuff I thought they did pretty well on for the most part.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, it's a good thing to bring up to segue into linebacker play and the secondary as well. Tua's ability to get rid of the ball quick is like one of his things. That's one of his quote unquote superpowers, right? And that stuff usually neutralizes our defensive line to a degree, and then it puts the onus on the linebackers and the defensive backs. I thought the back seven played a great game. I thought they tackled well. I thought they flew to the ball aggressively. I feel like they did a really good job snuffing out these quick passes and screens to basically to always keep Miami in third and long and always keep the pressure on Tua.
I think in between execution and the range of things they were asked to do, this was their best combined game of the season. I mean, obviously they were great against. I mean, just DBs and linebackers were great against the Cincinnati Bengals, but it was largely playing a whole lot of man coverage and doing the same stuff and all that. Whereas you have a whole, particularly when they got up, and that's going to be its own question, when they started doing some stunts and all these things and using DB blitzes and all this, it looked great. Like it looked really good. And like the concern you obviously have is if you're going to take these kind of risks, are you going to get punished for it? And yeah, they gave up a couple plays. There are a couple plays where Tua found the hole in the zone, as will happen. But they did not give up any touchdowns. They obviously kept him out. They gave up some yards, and they were able to recover, rebound, and figure it out. But I like the aggressiveness. I'm hoping we're going to do this because, just getting into this whole element of it, I'm in gear for 3 years. I've been waiting for them to figure out the other thing that they can do to cause problems for the opponent. And at least in this game, and I don't, this is where I have a whole bunch of questions. They're really good. So was this a case of the weather? Was this a case of Tua? Was this a case of Myles Garrett prodding them to be more aggressive? Was this a case of, they got Tyson Campbell and that was the missing piece? Was this a case of Jim Schwartz was just ready to do this? Or was this a case of, hey, the Browns are up 2 touchdowns and now we get to do this type of stuff? And I really, really hope it's not the last one, because I don't want to have to wait for the Browns to be up 2 scores again before we start seeing the defense like do this type of stuff. I desperately want, particularly as we're going to be talking about the best young quarterback in the NFL right now, I want to give him other things to think about. Like, I like the fact that the Patriots now have to sit there and go, well, we got to prepare for this stuff.
Yeah.
I want them to do some confusion stuff, because it wasn't just that they blitzed or zone dog and sent a different 4 or whatever. It was Carson Schwarzenegger did a great job in sort of selling and then backing out, or showing one slot on one side, showing blitz, and then it was Grant Delpit coming from the other side. Like, they did a lot of things that looked good for a team that I don't see do this. So all of that stuff is really, really encouraging. So I just love the fact that they were willing to do this. And I'm sitting here going, please don't tell me that the Browns have to be up by multiple scores before they're going to do this. Because while I understand that you got to be able to play sound run defense, and you can't do this on, 1st and 10 when you got to deal with a Ramondre Stevenson or whatever.
Yeah.
I do hope we see more of this on 3rd down and long. Like, I want to see this stuff, because like, the benefit you have is your pass rush, and you have Myles Garrett, and he's so good, and he requires so much attention. And the quarterback is so focused on that part of this, where he may not see the guy coming from the backside who's now cleaning his clock. I mean, like, that's really, really good. And look, at some point, somebody's going to punish them and beat them badly on it. It's going to happen. But like, I'm at least for the time being, I'm willing to see where this thing goes, because I genuinely think if they were doing this type of stuff against Minnesota, like, we might be having a different conversation about this team. Like, maybe they win that game if Carson Wentz has to see more things, as opposed to, I just got to beat man coverage every play with receivers who are really good at it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, though, you have to at least recognize that the coaching staff knows what they're dealing with on offense, and they know that giving up a touchdown or getting too aggressive and getting burnt on it is almost an insurmountable thing to give up with this offense.
Yeah.
So it's like, I get it. I 200% I agree with you, but I would say that it unfortunately is the latter. It is because we had the 2 touchdown lead that we started getting aggressive, because if we don't have that 2 touchdown lead, 1 score is going to make, I don't know. Like, I get what you're saying. And then on the other hand, I also get it too. Like, we're going into a gunfight with a super soaker. We got to be careful. I get that.
To me, I think the defense at times plays like they're afraid they're going to break something.
Yeah.
And yes, I completely understand, because the offense isn't doing enough, and you get yourself in this situation where if you feel like you make a mistake, you're going to lose the game. I do feel like that's the case at times. I do feel like that's an energy that's on them at times. And it's bad. It is a problem. Like, they've got to be able to play loose and just play and come up with what's going to happen, and see if they can't work it out and cause turnovers, because at some point they're going to give up a big play and potentially a score and maybe lose over one. But if they're also going to now put themselves in position to win, or at least if nothing else, I desperately need the opponent to be thinking about this other thing could happen at any given point, as opposed to, here we go, man coverage. Maybe they're going to blitz a linebacker, and that type of stuff. I want to see more things where scheme can come up with plays that are going to be there and forcing the opponent to win that way, as opposed to just trying to out-talent people.
All right, so let's talk about Tyson Campbell, because this is now 2 weeks. In my opinion, pretty strong return, because I look at the Pittsburgh game, and I think it was Adam Archuleta that was doing the call on Sunday, talked about how he had a rough game. I don't think he had a rough game. I think DK and Aaron Rodgers made a couple of really great connections and really good coverage, and it just happened to be on him. But I thought, from a physical standpoint, DK's he's a legitimate thoroughbred. That dude's a racehorse. And the fact that he was able to hang with him physically up and down the field, I was very encouraged by. And then running down Achane. Achane is a blazer. I thought that was super intriguing. I'm high on Tyson Campbell right now. I'm excited about it.
I think the A-Chain play is the play of his day. Like the second week in a row where he's chased somebody down that would have potentially, I don't know if Darnell Washington was going to score, but nevertheless chased him down. In that situation, he pokes the ball out.
Mm-hmm.
The ball goes where it goes, and the Steelers are ultimately keep it, but they do end up having to kick a field goal. He chases down A-Chain. The Dolphins end up having to kick field goal. Like in 2 games, he has saved this team at least 6 points.
Yep.
I love that for the tone it sets for everybody else. A guy who's been there 20 minutes is basically playing as hard as anybody on the team. Like, what excuse does anybody else have?
Yeah.
And just, his energy is good. Like, the interception return for a touchdown, phenomenal. But like, that was a Christmas gift. That was easy. That was not like, meanwhile, playing perfect technique on that Jalen Waddle fade is really good football. I mean, he played basically a perfect game at corner in terms of coverage. I understand some of the run fits weren't there, but like just in terms of coverage, he's phenomenal. And like right now, to make the comparison to Greg Newsome in terms of like what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing him, because you can't control that. But it is interesting that the Browns, he got here 3 days and the Browns are like, nope, you're starting. And Greg Newsome has played like 38 total snaps. He's basically the guy who comes in to be the third corner on the outside when they need that guy. That also sort of feeds into this. I mean, but from the Browns standpoint, it's just a pure win in terms of what he's doing. And at some point he's going to have an awful game. It's going to happen because that's the nature of the beast when you play that position. But he could not be making a better first impression relative to, because a lot of people hated the trade. And all of a sudden, Greg Newsome was this untouchable player, even though most of the previous 4 years, everybody hated him because he danced and did all these other things, even though I had never had a problem with any of this stuff. But Tyson Campbell plays with an attitude which clearly fits the rest of this defense. He excellent scheme fit. And then it's strange to me that like all of a sudden they start mixing in zone coverage when Tyson Campbell got traded out of Jacksonville because he can't play zone coverage. So like that's the other part of this, which I find very interesting, is all of a sudden they get more creative the second Greg Newsome's out of here, because I think Greg Newsome would have been better served to be able to do some of those things had he stayed. But it is what it is. So far, I'm happy with the trade, and I love the fact that Jacksonville's losing with Greg Newsome.
Amen. And I mean, another piece of trade too is we get an extra year at a very, very reasonable price with that too, which I think is like probably the best part of the deal, because even if you think we made a lateral move, we still added that additional year at a reasonable price. So we, in my opinion, even if it's a lateral move, we're still winning in this scenario. So I like the deal quite a bit. I thought Delpit played well. His delayed blitz on the Rayshon Jenkins interception was fantastic. I thought Ronnie Hickman played well. The video clip of him asking Tua to give him the ball, and then he immediately throws him the ball, might be my highlight of the season so far.
It reminds me of what was it? The former Arizona Cardinals phenomenal Hall of Fame Aeneas Williams when he was on the Rams. And which quarterback was it for the Browns where he's like, he's going to do this, and then he intercepted him freaking twice. It was like,
that was a Monday night game.
Yes, just miserable having to watch that go through. You're like, yeah, this is what we have to deal with every week. And Aeneas Williams is like, yeah, this is easy. Look, love it for Ronnie Hickman because it says this is a guy who's studying. He saw the look that looked familiar to him, got the concept that he was banking on, and was able to make the play. The Grant Delpit element, one, he's playing at a really high level. But two, more importantly, again, when I'm talking about this defense, and maybe part of this was a product of the fact that the Dolphins didn't have a frightening tight end to throw at them. This took me back to watching Grant Delpit at LSU. The range of things he can do, being able to blitz, being able to be a box enforcer, being able to play free, which we don't get to see him do a whole lot because he's always covering another tight end and has done a great job at it. But you got to see him do all the things and him shine. I mean, poor Malik Williams or whatever his name was, who got absolutely decked on that fourth down pass.
Yeah.
And Grant Delpit gets up and him and Ronnie Hickman are celebrating, completely unaware that this kid is basically broken in half on that play, trying to pick himself up off the field. But yeah, I mean, this was like the perfect Grant Delpit game in terms of everything he did. He not only does he the delayed blitz that they designed, again, another situation where Schlesinger sells on the front side to cause the center to sort of have to work left. He comes in the blitz, and then Rayshawn Jenkins gets the pick. And earlier in the game, Grant Delpit on kick return or kickoff coverage at that point, pokes the ball out for Rayshawn Jenkins to pick it up. Mm-hmm. Just a complete football game for Grant Delpit. And like, I continue to believe he's like I think he's the most underrated player on this team. I think people wildly underrate just how much what he can do. And like, I'll hear this on the broadcast too. I'll hear people say all he can do is basically function as an extra linebacker, which I think is a load of crap.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, he's been stacking strong performances all season long. He's been really, really good. And we've talked about it in previous shows. The gauntlet of tight ends that they faced this year is nothing short of brutal, that schedule. And he's answered the bell every single week, man. You got to give him the tip of the cap. Yeah, look, they extended him, and I feel like there was a little pushback when they extended him because he got, double-digit millions per year. But I feel like he's worth it, man. He's been fantastic.
Yes, Jack Duffin was loud wrong on that. Said he hated that extension at the time. And then what immediately happened after that was safety contracts jumped. They blew the second. Yeah. The next guy was the number jumped significantly. So the Browns, again, were rewarded for paying early. You're also, I think he's a good barometer for the locker room in terms of I think his confidence and the way he talks is
genuine.
It's genuine, and it's like, I think for the sake of those other guys, like I think there's definitely an element of this where he's saying this stuff because he believes in those guys, and there's so many young guys in that room that may or may not believe in themselves enough. And I think he's trying to like use his voice to get that out of them. And I think it's working to a certain extent. Like, don't get me wrong, Ronnie Hickman is a roller coaster. I think he played phenomenal in this game. Yeah. Beyond the interception, I thought there was one play where they tried to throw an out route. I thought the angle and the break he made on that ball was really impressive. And just flying down the field, flying down in as a support player. Ronnie Hickman is never, I don't think he's ever going to be the safety that people want him to be, because he's just not like a true free safety. He's a hybrid guy who's always going to have a little strong safety in him. But I think he fits for what they want him to do. But if he can get consistent, I like the kid's energy. I like the way he approaches it. He seems vocal back there, which is something you've got to be able to do. I'm hoping he can figure this thing out. Again, there have been games where he's been downright awful. But I'm hoping he can figure this thing out because he's a first-year starter.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. Ideally, and I know that they've dabbled with this schematically in the past. Do you think that maybe getting a true center fielder type this offseason and maybe dropping Delpit down as a linebacker in certain situations, or even Hickman at that point, going with a bigger defensive backfield, like a 3 safety look?
I thought that's what they were going to do until they announced that Ronnie Hickman was going to be the starter. I thought that was exactly the situation. I thought Ronnie Hickman was going to become that third safety, and they would get somebody, a truer free for like second and third and long in those types of situations. And they cover that. I wish, and this is part of the problem you have with having Grant Delpit be so good at covering tight ends. I wish they would do more in terms of mixing up what he's doing on given plays, so you can't sort of just anticipate the fact he's going to be covering the tight end. But, being able to utilize him in deep coverage, I think he has more value there than the others do. Because, like, here's the thing. Like, on the one hand, people want to say Grant Delpit is not a good coverage safety or whatever they think in terms of, like, being able to play zone or the middle of the field or whatever. On the other hand, we keep seeing safeties come into the league who are questionably athletic and then play really well. Like the kid out of Notre Dame, Xavier Watts, was a terrible athlete in terms of testing, seems to be fine. Or the kid, was it Cam Kinchins that ended up on the Rams? I don't even know if he's still there or whatever, but like was a guy who was able to come in or play well, at least in college, despite being a horrendous athlete, just because you sort of understand how things work.
Yeah.
Like, I wish there were more situations you could do that, but like, if they can find somebody, a developmental guy or whatever, so they can get that look, I'm all for it. Just to give a guy, I'd like to have a true center fielder somewhere in this defense. But yeah, I do like the ability of putting Ronnie Hickman in different situations because he is effective at being able to play sort of short zones, robber type looks, and he's physical around the box. So like, there's some advantages you get there.
All right. Well, let's wrap things up a little special teams talk. Your boy Schmitz Gay is just absolutely crushing it ever since week 1, man. I'm very, very pleased with what I've seen out of Andre Smith.
Well, here's my it seems to have timed up that the second I started using that GIF, he's been absolutely rock solid. I wish I would have remembered that from week 1. It's a shame I didn't have that ready to go. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not talking about kicker as a problem. And, how much can I really take away from this game in 1 field goal and 4 extra points? I don't know. But it was an adverse weather game, and he was rock solid, and we didn't have any problems. And, like, we're not talking – obviously, look, they don't score enough points for kicker to be a problem. But we're not in a situation other than that first week where we're sitting there going, man, this kid's killing us or whatever. Like,
yeah.
At least right this second, and I'm not going to like say, hey, sign him to a contract extension and let's get nuts or anything like that. But like, at least right this second, the prop position looks to be filled and satisfied for the time being.
Yeah. Well, and what I like too, he's got a booming leg, man. He's a powerful kicker. Like, his range is like, that's one of his strengths. That's exciting. And if he can keep the consistency with the accuracy aspect of it, I mean, hell yeah. Let's say, ride it till the wheels fall off. So if we were, let's do our around the AFC North stuff, but let's start with the story leading into the weekend, and we're going to talk about all the fallout from this after the fact. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, what a absolutely delightful thing that was to watch. And the close-ups on Tomlin's face every time Joe Flacco threw a nice pass was my favorite touch of the entire evening.
Yeah, so like, people are mad at Andrew Berry, and a certain Tony Rizzo basically came out with a rant that Andrew Berry should be fired for trading Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals. One, this is the same guy who desperately wants Shedeur to be on the field and starting, which is going to be really difficult if Joe Flacco's still in your way. And two, the Browns don't play the Bengals till week 18. I don't know if Joe Flacco is going to live that long, let alone, matter. And like, the Browns screwing over the Steelers, like, you would think that would be like a reward. You'd sit there and go, listen, if the Browns can hurt the Steelers, and they did, you would think this be like, 40 chests. Give the quarterback you don't want to a team that can screw the Steelers. Sign me up for this, because they got to play each other again. That part was there. Look, because immediately everybody turned this into, well, the Browns are screwed up because Joe Flacco is suddenly crushing it, and that means that Joe Flacco should have been crushing it for the Browns. I was like, if you watch Prime Vision, which is the one saving grace for Thursday Night Football, Prime Vision is fantastic. Mm-hmm. You're watching Jamar Chase and T. Higgins just toy with these guys. And the Browns do not have that guy. No. We desperately would like to get that guy, but they do not have it. And Joe Flacco threw it at Jamar Chase 22 times and threw it at T. Higgins 11 times. Like that, the Steelers were a nickel the entire way and never changed the thing. Like, I don't know what it is about Thursday Night Football for the Steelers where they're just like, yeah, I guess we got a couple days, so we're just not going to do anything. They looked old. They're obviously a 30-plus team in a lot of areas, and it looked it. That was problematic. I think Thursday Night Football is a bad fit for them. But, like, I couldn't be – like, I'm happy for Joe Flacco, too. The whole point of this trade, really, for the Browns was, like, Joe Flacco does not want to sit here and do nothing. He wants to play. If you can let him play. I still, even if you knew ahead of time Joe Flacco was going to play as well as he did, I don't think you could have gotten more than you got for him. So all you got in the end was a little bit more draft capital. Great. Joe Flacco's happy. He's grateful for the Browns for treating him right. Like, I do not want to be, if we're going to second guess this, like, do we have to go back in time and hate Andrew Berry for facilitating Odell Beckham's release so that he could go to the Rams and get a Super Bowl ring and destroy his knee simultaneously. Like, there is benefit for Andrew Berry to treat these guys right. He's treating the agents right. They like to work with him.
Yeah.
If this is paying off. He has a really good reputation with these people as a straight shooter and trying to do right by players. We've seen this time and time again. And like, they're genuinely grateful for it. They like have nothing but nice things to say about the Browns, Cleveland, and all this other stuff. And again, they beat the Steelers. I couldn't be happier with this arrangement.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And my biggest issue, and they're talking about that, and they're absolutely right. I feel like the media, especially like the local sports talk, and it's what they do. They want to drive ratings. They want to get clicks, however you want to put it. But you're not making an apples to apples comparison when you're talking about Joe Flacco, quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and Joe Flacco, quarterback for the Cincinnati Bengals. Positions. Cincinnati is possibly the most well-oiled machine offensively, save the offensive line. Well-oiled offensive machine in the NFL. 5 years now with Burrow, right? So you've got two very good ends. Like Pittsburgh, Cincinnati defended the Cleveland Browns. They almost had identical game plans. If you look at the amount of passes thrown, the amount of like carries by the running back, Chase Brown had 11 carries, but they were good carries because they're so damn scared of the wide receivers. They're playing a completely different defense.
I did not see any outrage about abandoning the run, despite the fact Chase Brown had 11 carries for 100 and something yards. Yep. Basically 8.9 yards a carry. Like, I frankly, I was surprised the Bengals didn't keep handing him the ball because Joe Flacco is 40 years old, and there was a risk that at some point they were going to make a play on the ball. I thought that the Bengals should have kept feeding him the ball, but whatever. It ended up working out for him. But yeah, I mean, again, this is the other part. Like, it sounds like an excuse for the sake of the Steelers. I just think Thursday Night Football produces.
There's nothing good that comes from it. It's a short week. You can't put the amount of work in. Everybody's tired. Everybody's banged up.
I just think it's difficult to get any meaningful long-term things where you're going to be like, this happened on Thursday, and you're going to like read into that as some meaningful thing. Short of being like the first game of the season, it's really difficult to be like, because like, would it shock? Like, they play the Jets, so I mean, they're going to be fine for at least another week. But it would not shock me if ultimately in a couple of weeks, Joe Flacco sort of reverts back and struggles again because they're playing real teams and they'd have full time to prep and do the things that they normally do. And the Bengals are flawed, but like, at least for right now, they're in good shape because they do get the Jets and they are probably going to get another win and be right back in the mix of things where they're at 500 and this thing looks really good with Flacco, which is fine. I don't care. Like, I don't sit here worrying about what the Bengals are going to do. Like, if the Bengals finish ahead of the Browns, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. And I still don't see them as like a contender for this year. So it's like, whatever.
Yeah. And I this all started with Tomlin. And Tomlin, if I were Tomlin, I would have been pissed off too. I get it. And I would have voiced it to the media. I would have said Andrew Berry's name. I would have pointed it out. I would have done all those things. But at the end of the day, it has no bearings on the Cleveland Browns. We were moving off the player. As you said, we wanted to do right by the player and send him to an opportunity where everybody gets what they want. Cincinnati got their quarterback. Flacco got to play. And the Browns got draft pick compensation for a guy that they bought for cash. So it's just like it's a win-win all the way around. Now, when the backlash of all this started, they started kind of poking and prodding in the relationship between Stefanski and Berry. Do you think there's anything to that? I personally do not, but that was the theme of this week because of the way Kevin was at the Flacco trade press conference and how he kind of threw it on Andrew, and it was the first time that they weren't in unison and everything like that. What's your take on that situation and that, all that scuttlebutt, I guess you could call it?
When Andrew Berry said, or I should say, when Kevin Stefanski said he was surprised by it, I didn't take that as he was surprised that the trade happened or that Andrew Berry made it. I think he was surprised by the fact that the Bengals called and said they wanted Joe Flacco. Like, I think that's what he was surprised about. Not you traded away this other quarterback that I had, because I think if Andrew Berry asked Kevin Stefanski and said, "Listen, do you really need this guy?" I can't imagine Kevin Stefanski said yes. And then the other part about this is, again, like, they were fully aware Joe Flacco has not been he's not like a problem, but he's pretty clear in that how he's been public about this. He wants to play. He doesn't want to be a backup. At 40 years old, he's trying to play as many football games as possible. So I don't see any problem. So no, I don't see any issue with this at all. I don't think that, like, Andrew Berry pulled the rug out from under it. It's not like Joe Flacco was starting and he had a hot shot rookie behind him and he traded him
to make way for the rookie. Yeah.
Like Ben Tate, who is standing in front of Nick Chubb with that situation. I think this is collaborative. I think Kevin Stefanski was entirely on board, because I don't think Kevin Stefanski was sitting and going, man, if this kid struggles, I'm going to run right back to the 40-year-old. I don't think that was realistic. And it was not, say what you will, like, I thought Flacco could have been better, but like, part of the reason, and it's certainly not all Flacco's fault, the blocking wasn't good, the receivers weren't good, all this other stuff. But part of the reason they were in such a big hole with turnovers was because of Flacco. So like, it solved everybody's problems. And I don't think, would his wisdom have been a value to his stories and all this stuff been a value to the quarterback room? Absolutely. But I think this just came down to do right by the player, get something for it, and get a clear direction on where you're going to go the rest of the season.
Yeah. And, not for nothing with all the Flacco stuff, Flacco is built perfectly for the Cincinnati offense. There's probably 28 or 29 offenses that you could plug Joe Flacco in, and he's not going to look good. I mean, we saw him last year in Indianapolis where, I mean, granted, like, there's been, little things on the roster that they've changed, but this is a very similar team to the one they had a year ago. It's just the difference is they have a quarterback who's a better fit and he's making plays. I mean, Joe Flacco was in Indy last year with that near same roster and wasn't able to produce. It's kind of the stars aligning for him in Cincinnati right now. I don't think it's going to last that long. I mean, how could it? The Bengals offensive line is the only one statistically, like, in our offensive line's realm. And I think statistically it's even worse. So I don't see this happening for Joe forever. But the fact that they thought that this trade, or at least, made it seem as though this trade was any sort of divisive thing that's splitting, a gap between the front office and the coaching staff, I think is way off.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I'm sure you recall, the Baker Mayfield insane Rams game was a Thursday night football game. Like, there's a weirdness to that game that allows for that. But, it may be a situation where, I don't know, Joe Flacco may have some powers that are only unlocked if you trade for him during the season or bring him in, well into the season. I don't know. But I agree with you. I think at some point this is going to run out, because, like, that Colts offense had receivers, it could block, it had a good running back, and it was bad. And obviously it works really well right now. So yeah, I think at some point this is going to run its course pretty quickly. But if you're the Bengals, you don't care, because at the very least you got one win against the Steelers. You have to feel pretty good to get another one against the Jets. And if you get 2 wins out of this, it's already proven worth it, because all you're trying to do is desperately stay afloat as long as possible in hopes that Joe Burrow is going to come back and then take over and save you.
Yeah, agreed. So let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They lost. They had this week's London game against the Rams. The Rams tattooed them, got up early and held on to it. Always good to see that. Travis Hunter finally had a big game as a receiver, got his first touchdown. I'm going to say he had like 8 catches for a little over 100 yards, something like that. Does it surprise you that he's playing so few snaps on defense right now?
I continue to be flummoxed by the plan with him in general. Like,
yeah,
I look, because on the one hand, he got 100 yards. Great. Most of it was the game was over. And look, for a player like that, any rookie, the development and the confidence building and all that stuff is worth it. I just don't know why you didn't. And this is why I had major reservations about this. It's like, just make him a wide receiver. Let him be great at that, and then revisit the DB thing when he's dominating as a receiver. You need to score a point. Like the Jags defense is reasonably pretty good.
Yeah.
They need to score points. And so to like do this half and half thing, I just think is a disservice to them. And I think it's really making that into a much longer development curve than I think they anticipated, which is now hurting them because I think they were under the impression that Brian Thomas was going to continue to be great, that Trevor Lawrence was going to be able to make that work and have Brenton Strange and Parker Washington, who seems to be the guy that, for whatever reason, Trevor Lawrence is always trying to throw the ball to. And just it just seems like Travis Hunter is wasted on the right now. And then on top of everything else, obviously you bring in Greg Newsome. So now you have another guy who's coming to a defense that doesn't just play man coverage. They do some zone stuff. So it's like you have to actually teach him and like get him integrated, because all he's doing right now, and I don't blame him, is having guys dunk on him right now. Like Devontae Adams had it from like 2 yards away or whatever, but literally just dunked on him as he caught fades on every DB seemingly in the building. It's great for the Browns. I love the fact that they're messing around and tinkering with this crap on the fly, because I think it's clearly backfiring for them.
Yeah.
But like, just for the sake of Travis Hunter, I think they're doing him a disservice, and as a result, I think that's doing the team a disservice.
Now let's talk about Trevor Lawrence. I personally, like, when you watch him play, I almost feel as though he has not gotten any better since he was a freshman at Clemson. He seems like the exact same guy. And ever since he's hit the NFL, it's been nothing but uneven performance, struggling with accuracy and turnovers, the occasional, good game, good performance, great play. Like, you see the physical ability, but I feel like he can't do anything consistently. I just don't think he's playing well at the moment. And there's been such small spurts of him playing well. I mean, what do you do if you're Jacksonville at this point? What would your plan be with Trevor Lawrence, and what would you be thinking about Trevor Lawrence long term?
I think they should bench him immediately and put in, I don't even know who the backup is at this point.
Yeah.
Lose as many games as possible. Yeah. And then, realize you traded away your first round pick. And then, look, here's my problem with Trevor Lawrence. It never feels like he anticipates anything. His throws are always late. So unless he's running like deep posts or some sort of streak down the middle of the field where he can see a line and throw the line, it just constantly feels like he needs to see it open before he throws it. And the amount of passes that always feel like they're a beat late is off the charts, and it allows these guys to make plays on the ball. It's causing, obviously, Brian Thomas has real reservations at points because if he feels like he's getting thrown into problematic positions, in part because Trevor Lawrence is late. Yeah. I mean, I don't know at this point how you can get him to play faster, but that is clearly the issue to me. He does not play fast. My criticism of Clemson when he was there is it was so easy. It was all streaks on the field or throws to the flat, or they're never challenging him to get better. And they had more talent than everybody else, so they could get away with it. But they never made him like make window throws or even like intermediate passes. It was all easy. And he looked so good, and the numbers were great and all this other stuff that everybody thought he was doing. I always, when people were throwing out generational talent, like he was the next Andrew Luck, I had major reservations watching him. So, I saw how big he was and he could run and all these other things, but like, I just did not see the development, and I still don't. And I don't know where this thing's could go, because right now I think he's basically Kyler Murray East, where you've got both these quarterbacks, you're paying them a ton of money, and you can't feel super good about either one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. It's interesting that you brought up Kyler Murray, because I feel like Arizona has thrived ever since Jacoby Brissett's been in the lineup. It looks like a different offense. It looks like an offensive system, and not just Kyler Murray playing backyard football and kind of dropping back and improv.
Yeah, same thing. He gets to the top of his drop, the ball comes out on time, and the offense looks better. And you get into situations, you talk about drops with some of these guys, and I'm telling you, there is an element to this where guys are messed up when they're off schedule trying to catch passes, and there are guys who are struggling with it. I think Marvin Harrison, in some elements, is one of those guys where he's had a difficult time, like his whole rookie season, because everything was sort of off kilter in terms of timing and stuff. Like you couldn't just play on schedule, and Kyler Murray is not that guy.
Yeah.
Kyler Murray throws a whole lot of balls into harm's way. He wants to create with his legs and do all these other things. And there's a whole lot of positives you can get out of that. But when you can't operate on time and consistently, it can really screw up what your offense is doing. Unless the one guy who was able to sort of get away with that and play at a really high level, and I don't know if the NFL sort of evolved past it, was Roethlisberger. I mean, he got to there. Back, wait for the scramble drill, and then just figure it out.
Yeah, and he was incredible at it.
Yeah,
he was his own third offensive tackle because he was so damn big back there.
So, but like it seems like Arizona has tried it; it's not working. So it's another situation. I don't know what you do with him because I haven't looked at the contract or anything, but like nobody's taking him from you. I remember like before this year, both two trade scenarios for Flyer Wizards. The Browns trade number 2 overall pick for Trevor Lawrence, and Browns trade number 2 overall pick for Kyler Murray. It's like, no way. I want no part of this.
Yeah, especially at that contract. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Murray experiment's going to end after this season, and I never really understood. Like, I understand that you want to get him a target, but between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Nabers, give me the explosive run after catch guy that's going to be probably a little bit better fit than the absolute technician that's going to be exactly where he's supposed to be, but Kyler doesn't know where the hell he's supposed to be. So there you go. It just that seems like a bad fit from the start.
Admittedly, Marvin Harrison seems slower than I think everybody thought he was going to be, and I don't know if he's going to figure that out. Like, and not that he's going to get faster, but play faster.
Yeah.
I think everybody's sort of taken aback by that part of it where like, and granted, there were some people who were like, he's going to be Larry Fitzgerald. And if he could be that, you'd be fine because Larry Fitzgerald was not a speedster. But to your point, with Kyler Murray, I don't know if the answer to that is yes. And maybe that's part of the problem is it is a mismatch of talent. And maybe it would have been better with a guy like Malik Nabers. And it's one of those things where there's a little part of me wondering, am I gonna be mad at myself for really loving Jordan Tyson if he's going to be sort of in that same mold, or if he's a little bit more. I think he's got more juice than that, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's like it's an interesting thought process because it's not unlike Jerry Jeudy, right? And I've been saying this for the last few weeks with Jeudy. If Jeudy is not engaged, if Jeudy is not fed targets, he is like his focus drifts. The consistency with his hands is all over the place. I just like he's a different player. He just is, and maybe that's the issue that Marvin's having right now. But I feel like there's something to be said, because we would give Joe Flacco credit when he would have his struggles early because he's got a bunch of rookies out there running routes and he doesn't know if these guys are going to be where they're supposed to be. Half the time they can't even line up right pre-snap, and I have to assume it's the same thing with a wide receiver. If you know that you got to go, 10 yards downfield and turn around, but you don't know if the ball is coming or not, like that's just a weird mental spot to be in.
Yeah, it's tough. It's why wide receiver is such a difficult evaluation. Everybody's like, well, Andrew Berry sucks at evaluating wide receivers. Everybody sucks at evaluating wide receivers other than the Minnesota Vikings. They're the one team that seems to consistently get it right. But it's really hard because there are all these factors that like seem like they make sense. Marvin Harrison was supposed to be a slam dunk and was supposed to be a star right out of the gate. He hasn't been. And meanwhile, you'll get guys like Puka Nacua, who had a ton of talent, obviously, and injuries and all this other stuff between two schools, who's come out and absolutely lit it up. And how much of that is he got put in the perfect situation with Matt Stafford, and how much of that is Puka Nacua is just really good. But wide receiver is just such a tricky position to evaluate. And, we think we know the answers to some of this stuff. And I mean, look, there are things I'm always going to.
So let's, you froze up for that last part of that, but I wanted to ask you about the Denver New York Giants game, because not only was that just a crazy game in general, I would like to talk about the Giants a little bit, because a lot of Browns fans like Jackson Dart, you and I included in that. A lot of Browns fans like Cam Scatterbo. What are you thinking about New York? Because Dart's getting a ton of press right now, but I wouldn't say he's playing good quarterback right now. I think he's making opportune plays, and he's making plays with his feet. But I don't know. You tell me. What do you think about Jackson Dart so far?
The talent is there. He's got a ton of ability, and I love the thing I love about Jackson Dart, and I love this about Ole Miss. And this is a contrast to Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders played backwards. Jackson Dart plays forward. Like you constantly see him attacking the line of scrimmage. And because he's so athletic, like he gives you this sort of like, oh, is he running or isn't he? But a lot of the time he's attacking the line of scrimmage to throw the ball downfield. Mm-hmm. And it can be really dangerous with that. The problem I have with Jackson Dart right now, and look, I thought he was, I think it's going to take him some time to sort of figure it out. His completion percentage is ass. Like I don't think he even completed 50% of his passes in that game. He seems to play every game like it's going to be his last.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the thing that scares me the most. He does not protect himself at all. And like it's the combination of him and Scatterbo are both playing every game as if they're trying to win or die.
Yeah.
Is infectious, and you will love it until both guys are out.
Hurt. Yeah.
And if he gets hurt, the Giants are done. Like obviously they're in trouble anyway by record, but like he is the whole thing. So the way he plays, which is so reckless, and he's obviously been in for the concussion check and some of these other things. It scares the crap out of you, but like he is tantalizing in terms of just the ability he has, the speed he has, and the way he plays the game. Like in some ways, he plays with a similar energy in terms of Baker Mayfield, where he sort of gives you that sort of just impassioned belief that even if he makes a mistake and he threw a pick and all these other things, he's going to get it back and you're going to figure it out, which is great. But like, if he doesn't get those other things right, and I think he will ultimately, yeah. I hope he survives long enough to do it. I just think it's going to take some time. That's why I evaluate him as a late first, early second round prospect. I'm not like backing away from that. And like, I hope the kid is successful, but like, if you're sitting there going, the Browns have taken him at 5, I think you're crazy, because if Jackson Dart was on the field for the Browns right now, everybody would be calling him a bust, because there's so little going on and you're relying entirely on his legs to run. Like it would be just a nightmare scenario. So I think like the Giants were a little bit better prepared to take a player like him, but they are also, he's the whole thing right now between him and Scatterbo. So it's like, it's a huge risk with that situation right now. And like, what are they? Whether they played 7 games, they have another 10 to go like this. Like,
yeah,
I think at some point Dart is going to end up out of a game. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take, because he gets pounded.
Well, it's already been 3 different things. He had the concussion check in the tent a week ago, right? He had a hamstring 3 weeks ago. He had the ankle on Sunday. Like, it's already starting to mount. And like these little things, yeah, you can play through it, but these are going to start stacking, man. Like you said, there's 10 more games left. There's 10 more games left. And that dude is getting his bell rung all day long on Sunday, and he's seeking out half of it. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's the talent's there. And the way you mentioned earlier about how he attacks the line of scrimmage, trying to open things up downfield or even, run the ball himself. That was the first touchdown to Daniel Bellinger, who was a guy that you turned me on to a couple years ago in the draft out of San Diego State. Is he went up to the line, Hufanga, the safety, started dropping down because he thought he was going to run, and then bam, it was like a 54-yard touchdown to Daniel Bellinger down the field. He throws a beautiful downfield pass up the seams. He's very accurate. I like that part of his game quite a bit.
The thing that's like works for and against Dart is his athleticism, because like we look at guys like Lamar Jackson, some of these other quarterbacks, and like Lamar Jackson might be in that phase right now where like there's only so many hits this type of quarterback can take, and you don't want to waste them like this year, like in this type of season where the Giants aren't going anywhere. And yeah, he can develop and do all these other things, but like at what cost are we going to be talking about? Maybe he can be really good, but then like we've shortened his lifespan, and ultimately the Giants are going to take that and say, hey, we want the really, really good, and then we'll figure it out. But like so many car wrecks, it's going to end badly for you. And I hope he gets to a point where he figures out, they figure out the blocking and he can play normal. But like, those are the things that scare the crap out of me, because it is like, on the one hand, you sort of look at this and you go, man, if you could just get a quarterback, you're going to live with it. On the other hand, you have to treat this like a priced investment, because you need these guys to be around. And if you can get a guy who can last you for 15, 20 years, the value in that, as opposed to a guy who can maybe stick around for 6.
Yeah. And I mean, everybody's always going to point to the Andrew Luck situation, right? The early retirement, because
the Joe Burrow situation.
That's what I was just going to say. Is like the next one on that list is Joe Burrow. It's been every other year with him that he's been, on the shelf for the year with an injury, or he's in the AFC Championship. It's one of the two. It's been either or. And that's, it's almost like you almost got to look at it like a parent, right? Like I want my daughter to learn lessons as she goes through life. And some of them are going to be harsh. You hope they're not too harsh. It's like, you hope he learns his lesson without, breaking a leg or getting absolutely destroyed and concussed for 3 weeks or something like that. You hope that he'll just learn from something non-catastrophic, so to speak.
You don't want the owner wheelchairing you out to the sideline.
Yeah. Agreed. So let's look at New England. All right, New England's the opponent for next week. They are 5-2 right now.
Yes,
5-2. Best young quarterback in football. If you look statistically, he's probably top 5 in the MVP race right now. And Drake May's doing all this with a supporting cast that was universally laughed at going into the season. Tell me what you think about Drake May, man. He seems real deal.
The thing that works for Drake May is his efficiency, and his ability to get on the field is killing it. The thing that sort of works against him is, based on defensive rankings, he's played nobody.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately includes the Steelers. Their defense is not ranked very highly, so you have to take that into consideration. But they lost that game. I mean, this is a team that lost to the Raiders.
Yeah.
This is a team that had beat Dolphins 33-27. Now, I think they had Tyreek Hill and some of those other guys still, but nevertheless, like, look at the difference now. So, like, on the one hand, Drake May is playing at an incredibly high level. On the other hand, he's got to go against the best defense he's faced all year. So can the Browns cause problems with him? Again, this is where I desperately hope they are not just going to play man coverage and sit there. They need to give him some alternate looks to hopefully fool him to make mistakes. Hopefully they can get pressure on him. They've got a rookie left tackle. I like that situation. Their left guard isn't very good. The other guys are okay, but they're not really a great front, and they do like to run the ball. Mm-hmm. The Browns have been pretty good stopping the run. The sort of X factor for them is Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, if you watch like the game against Buffalo, where I don't even know what you call some of the things he's doing, where he's like, in terms of routes, he seems like he's making it up as he goes along, and he gets open and figure out, because like Hunter Henry's a very good player. I'd like to think Grant Delpit's going to be successful against that. Can the Browns stop the run? Can the Browns give Drake May enough problems to sort of confuse him, to make him hesitate, to hopefully get a cheap hit, maybe get a sack, fumble, those type of things? Mm-hmm. That's where this gets really interesting. The Browns, and the other thing that's sort of weird, and this is just completely anomalous, the Patriots are 1-2 at home and like undefeated on the road. Do the Browns actually gain something by going to Foxborough? I doubt it, considering they haven't played very well on the road defensively. Nevertheless, it's a weird sort of element. So that's sort of going to be like, in terms of the money matchup, it's going to be Drake May for the Browns defense, like to the extent where it's interesting to people who are not just Browns and Patriots fans.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Patriots defense. Now, from my understanding, it's a very strong run defense, right? They added some veterans this offseason. They added Harold Landry from the Titans. They added Milton Williams from the Eagles, little interior presence there. So I feel like, like we talked about, we know the game plan against the Browns. Load the box, stop Quinshon Judkins, make Dillon Gabriel beat you. What about this? Well, let's talk about this too. Mike Vrabel. Do you think Vrabel has any sort of, not necessarily an advantage, but, do you think the work he did last year gives him any sort of, peek behind the curtains?
Not really. I mean, one, the Browns, have a
different offensive system.
Different offensive coordinator. They're running a different system. Like, other than sort of having a general sense of what Kevin Stefanski is as a coach, which I don't think Mike Vrabel had to work here to figure that out. They know each other well enough, and they've played against each other before. Like, Kevin Stefanski has yet to lose to Mike Vrabel at this point in the matchups they have had. I put little or nothing into that element of this, other than he's got a general sense of what Kevin Stefanski likes to do. But that part of it is uninteresting, just to the same level of like, obviously Josh McDaniels the offensive coordinator, but I don't think like that like Kevin Stefanski has some great insight into Mike Vrabel's defense based on his taking belt to ass to the Titans multiple times. Yeah. I don't think like that's suddenly going to figure this thing out. I do worry about the defense a little bit, just in the sense that they are big. Khyiris Tonga at nose is a giant human being. Christian Barmore, giant human being. Milton Williams is a good player. I think they're a little bit suspect on the edges. Again, there's another game where if they can somehow find a way to get off tackle, I think they're going to be in business. Robert Spillane is a really good run defending linebacker. He's not, I mean, Browns finally remember Robert Spillane in the playoffs. They picked on him relentlessly. Mm-hmm. The thing that worries me about the Patriots is their corners. Christian Gonzalez is really good.
Yep.
They signed Carlton Davis, who's been pretty good for them as well, even though the number, like PFF's number, which I hate for corners anyway. They hate man coverage anyway. But then you've got them, and you got Marcus Jones, who's been reasonably okay as a nickel, and their safeties are reasonably okay, and they can just do a whole lot of different things. That's where I get worried, because on the one hand, we desperately need Dillon Gabriel to be more aggressive down the field. On the other hand, I don't want to then have him make some stupid decisions because he gets fooled and doesn't see something coming. So they got to be smart from that end. Obviously, the Browns are going to try to run the ball as best they can. They're going to try to create, hopefully, situations where Quinshon Judkins can be effective. But I think they have to try to use that as much as they can against the Patriots to create opportunities. And I don't know how that's going to happen. Dillon Gabriel's got to play better. He's got to see the field better. The receivers have to be able to do better. I've checked out the forecast. I don't think it's changed. It should be reasonably clear and all those other things. So that part shouldn't be a huge element. But just by efficiency, the Patriots defense is not great. It's all about their offense. So I worry about individual players. I don't necessarily worry about the Patriots as a unit necessarily, other than the fact that the Browns are bad on offense. And that scares me just based on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we can agree on that. And, that's kind of the catch-22 of the whole thing with Dillon Gabriel is on the one hand, you want to push him. You want to put him in situations where he has to answer the bell. He has to make downfield plays and stuff like that. On the other, you want to win. And you don't want necessarily for him to be in a position where he could throw the game away in some capacity. So it's that's where I struggle with him is I want to see more and I want them to make him show more. But, at what cost? Because it could always go the other way. And that's, look, at the end of the day, it's tough to sell the locker room on the fact that you're trying to develop a quarterback, so if he's not producing offensively and if he tries to produce, he turns the ball over. It's, what the hell are we doing?
Well, I mean, the bottom line is they've got to do more. They cannot unless game flow dictates that, hey, the Browns, get an early stop and Quinshon Judkins is able to run the ball and they're able to build a lead and do these things, they're going to have to produce points. I can't sit there and go expect the Browns get a pick six. I can't expect special teams to create a turnover. I can't expect the Browns to be in a short field multiple times.
Yeah.
They've got to create, and they've got to create explosive plays. Against the Dolphins, they had 2 explosive plays, and one of them was that Jamari Thrash cross. If that's the way they can create explosive plays, great. But they've got to find a way that whatever Dillon Gabriel is comfortable with in terms of the types of throws he wants to make, combined with the type of coverages the Patriots are going to want to run, they've got to find a way to stretch the field and keep the Patriots honest. If for no other reason, it should then give them some ability to hopefully run the ball at Judkins. You watch the Dolphins. It's of handing the ball off 25 times for 84 yards, and 46 of them are on one play, which means you're getting basically 1/6 the other carries. That's miserable. You cannot, that's not sustainable. It's great. Yes. When you hand the ball off that many times, chances are you're winning, but they had the benefit of being up so much. They have to be able to now create points in this team. And look, if the Patriots want to put the ball on the ground 5 times, like they did against the Steelers, okay, the Browns can win that way. But I don't go into this game assuming that. I assume the Browns are going to have to score, produce 20 points at least, and see. And in order to do that, when they go into the game plan, one, they're going to sort of have an estimate of how many points they think they need, and then they're going to have to come up with ways for them to get there. And look, I go back to the Steelers game, and I saw opportunities down the field. They got to hit some of those. They got to he's got to actually pull the trigger and take those shots. They got to hit at least one of those at some point to give themselves a chance. Because if they can do that, I mentioned this on Gang of Three. I looked at the Philadelphia Eagles game where that offense has been horrible for several weeks. And then all of a sudden, Jalen Hurts managed to hit Devontae Smith deep down the field. And it just sort of, at least for that game, it opened everything up. And they started going, and the Browns desperately need that play to sort of open things up. If it's Bond, if it's to Judy, if it's to whoever, just find a way to get that play where everybody can sit there and go, there it is.
Yeah,
we've done it. Now let's try to get going. And from that end, likewise, Dillon Gabriel needs to come out comfortable and ready to go quickly. The ball needs to be confidently coming out of his hand, on time, all those things. So I don't want to say it's pressure on Dillon Gabriel. I just look at this as an opportunity, man. You get to go out there, hopefully rip it, create some plays on the offense, and get it going in a way that's I want to see Dillon Gabriel play a game that Dillon Gabriel is going to come off the field and go, man, that, I felt like I was playing my brand of football as opposed to 13 of 18 because the weather was awful. And yeah, it's great. You got your first win. Awesome. But did you really get to do that much? And the answer is not really.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting to me. I would have liked to have seen them just call some more shots early in games just to make the defense respect it. You don't even need to hit it. Just let them know we are going to throw the ball downfield. We are going to be aggressive if you give us a look. And I feel like we haven't even really done that. He's had a couple throws downfield, but they always seem like prayers. Half the time they land too far out of bounds for anybody to even make a play on it. I want to see a calculated shot that is going to put pressure on the defense. I feel like we haven't seen it, at least not that much.
No, I mean, we haven't. And the thing is, you can see it. The Browns are trying to dial those things up. He's got to have his eyes in the right place.
Yeah.
He's got to be able to see it. He's got to throw it. And the protection's got to be good enough. From that end, I think the protection can be good enough this week. Milton Williams is pretty good. Harold Landry's fine. But they don't have some dominant pass rush that you got to really deal with. Now, I say that, and Clavon Chason is going to end up with 4 sacks or some nonsense. But they have – this feels like a matchup where the Browns should be able to protect enough to get some of those shots up and try to loosen things up and really put pressure on the secondary. And it's got to happen, or we're going to hear more about, well, when are they going to go to the other guy, whether or not he warrants that move.
Yeah.
And, you and I will continue to sit there and go, if he's not going to do it, at some point we're going to have to make that move, see what else he could do. Because if Dillon Gabriel is working essentially the red zone and nowhere else, we've seen where that goes.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, it literally, you mentioned the red zone thing, and that's, to me, that's the crux of all of our offensive issues right now, is that the defense only has to cover about 25 yards worth of ground. And it just closes everything in. It's just less room for everybody to operate. There's less receivers. It's hard for a receiver to get open in, a 10-yard space when he's got linebackers dropping, he's got corners on him, and you got a quarterback who's struggling to see over the line of scrimmage. Like, that's just the reality of the situation.
Well, and we did see a little bit of this where, like, clearly there was, like against the Dolphins, there was one play where clearly they were sending a whole bunch of guys down the field, because then they ended up dumping the ball off to Harold Fannin underneath, who had space and was able to pick up the 11 yards and get the first down with the benefit of an offsides penalty that was declined. But, like, when that happens, like, Harold Fannin gets a whole bunch more space. Like, this is exactly what you want. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, like, the benefits just keep giving you more and more and more. So if you can push them back, Quinshon Judkins benefits, Harold Fannin benefits. These are guys you want to be able to do that. But, like, if Isaiah Bond can create more space for Jerry Jeudy in the middle field where there's opportunities, great. Like, it's just, like, as much as I want to say how limited this offense is, I just feel like if they can get some of these things going, it will feel so much more open than it is right now. And that's the problem, is it feels like you are playing in a closet, and they've got to be able to find a way out of it, or they will lose. And then we're going to be, 2-6, and they may well be anyway, going into the bye week. And everybody's going to be sitting there asking questions about whether or not this kid's worth the time, and should Shedeur be sort of prepped for the Jets. I don't think that's realistic necessarily, but that's going to be the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would agree with that 100%. I think that'll be the only conversation if we lose and Dillon Gabriel doesn't look good while we do it. I mean, I feel like this is a big game for him, because this could completely change the narrative regarding him. If he has a strong game and he shows signs against New England, then you're hitting the bye week with a little momentum, and you got 2 weeks to prepare for the Jets, who, tough defense, but really struggling team right now, and a really winnable game. A strong performance by Dillon Gabriel, and you're going to quiet those questions, and you're going to go into the bye week and the Jets game with a lot of momentum. But if he doesn't, it's going to be a very loud distraction for the next 2 weeks. And even if he, will be on his back for sure.
Even if, like, they lose, but he goes down swinging in the sense of pushing the ball down the field and creating some stuff where, like, you sit there and go, okay, I can see you're trying to make that known.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, that would be a huge difference. If again, if they're in a closet the whole game, like, at some point, what do you want me to do with that? Like, what do you want the coaching staff to do with that? Like, you've got to make an argument. You got to make a case for yourself at that point, and you're not doing it at that point. Again, it's not fair to say after 4 games, like, the kid can't do it, but, like, that is the position he's unfortunately in terms of he's in the spot. He's not there to just get better. He's there to try to compete in football games, and he's got to compete.
Well, and the tough thing about him too is, in terms of physical development, he's done. Like, this is the player that he is. Like, that's just it. Like, there's not some athletic aspect that's going to be unlocked. There's not this big durable body with a cannon on. There's just not. There's lots of limitations to him physically. So when we see the mental struggles along with it, my first reaction is, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
Because for me, I thought it was a very appropriate comparison to say that he's Kevin Stefanski's new Case Keenum. I thought that made a ton of sense. I even think that's okay to use a late 3rd round pick on a long-term backup, because that's not a cheap position. You get it on a rookie contract. You get 4 years. You're comfortable with the guy, yada, yada, yada. I get all that. But for me, why am I developing Case Keenum?
Yeah.
Why are we halting the progress of our young receivers and our young tight ends and our young backs with a rookie who is just about maxed out? Like, he's going to get better mentally. He's going to get quicker with things. He's going to learn defense. He's going to do all that stuff. And I think in time, he's going to be a quarterback that can be on the level of a Case Keenum, who in spots was a pretty productive player from time to time. I think Dylan's going to have a long career. But I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah, I mean, that's the part where he's got to go out swinging because, like, otherwise, look, I think Dylan Gabriel is going to crush preseasons for the next many years.
Yeah.
But, like, in terms of real football, he's got to be more than just a guy who can sort of facilitate a little bit. Like, if he's got a great roster, you can win with him. But even, like, right now, you know, I have questions as far as that can go. So, and again, it's not fair to sort of look at him like this because I do think he will get better. But that part of it has to be there in terms of you do a great job protecting the football, even though that one pass to Jerry Jeudy was really risky.
Yeah.
But overall, like there's some stuff
called back by a penalty too.
Yes, although that was definitely a penalty.
Yeah.
The bottom line is like you've got to be able to again make a case for yourself, go down, swing, and make an argument that sort of says like to your point, you're not going to develop physically, but he's got to show you something that says I want to see more of him, as opposed to okay, this is what we're getting, and I'm ready for the other guy.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. Well, let's do a bit of a pivot. Let's talk some college ball. Okay. Now, before we get into some prospects and stuff like that, I would love to get your opinion on Julian Sayin. I'm so impressed with this kid. I was impressed with him early because I thought back on like the recent Buckeyes that had their initial start, right? Like CJ Stroud when he started his first game, or Kyle McCord. I thought early on Julian Sayin looked more comfortable, more confident than both of those guys, and I was super impressed by that. But what he's done, stacking 80% completion days, is just fantastic.
Right now, my impression of Julian Sayin is he's the perfect college quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. And that's not because I just don't know how far he can go.
Yeah.
But he is absolutely perfect for Ohio State. He is absolutely perfect for what they need to do. He does everything right. He's got enough of everything to work. And he's really good with chemistry and all these other things. He, with Jeremiah Smith, with Carnell Tate, he's just really effective. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to be, a great NFL quarterback. And I don't think he's in any hurry to leave either. I think like he's going to be in there into the season. But like every time I think this is sort of true of Ohio State in general. I just feel like they're a methodical machine rolling through teams right now. They're not like running it up on teams. They're not like really, I don't know that they're showing everything for one thing. I think they're doing what they need to do to get wins and do those things.
Yeah.
But like it feels to me like they are waiting for whether it's Michigan or the postseason where they are really going to start bringing some stuff out. Like I feel like there have been a couple of games where they probably could have put up 60 and just held off in terms of really going at the play calls, in terms of everything else. But like just what I watched from Julian Sayin, it's clean, it's efficient. And look, he's got the benefit of being on a really good team. Like there's no question about that. That certainly helps, but he's just really good at everything. Eyes are in the right place. Even against Texas, the first part of the year, I just, the first game of the year, I'm just sitting there going, yeah, he's smart. He keeps away from mistakes. He gets the ball where it's supposed to go, and he's going to let it happen. And when he gets a shot, he's gonna make plays. So like, he's great for them. And like right now, I think they're the overwhelming favorite to win the national championship right now.
Yeah.
with everything they've got going.
Yeah, I don't think I've watched anybody play this year that's on Ohio State's level. I was not a fan personally of the Matt Patricia hire. I'll be the first to say I was dead wrong. He's been phenomenal. The defense has been phenomenal. Statistically, it's ridiculous, but it looks like an NFL defense. It looks like a high-level NFL defense. It's really interesting to see.
Matt Patricia is the best argument for Kevin Stefanski to me.
Yeah.
Everybody hated that hire. Like I was sitting there when it happened. I was like, he's won multiple Super Bowls in the NFL as a defensive coordinator. Like this seems like a dream hire. All these people, boo, Matt Patricia, he sucks. And like, he gets to Columbus, and he's got all this talent, and he's just killing people. I don't even think they have necessarily a really good edge rusher. He's just creating stuff that just works for them. And he's got Arvell Reese, people talking about him as a top 10 pick. Going into the season, everybody's like Caleb Downs. All of a sudden, there are people who are like Arvell Reese is better than Caleb Downs. Like, they are just absolutely killing people. And like, this is the thing. Like, Matt Patricia was never a bad coach. He failed with the Lions, so be it. He's been a really good defensive coordinator. He goes to a team in Ohio State that has a ton of talent. Lo and behold, the guy knows how to coach again. Like, this is the thing. And like, so when you're sitting here going, Kevin Stefanski sucks because he can't scheme up this offense against a really good defense. Yeah. Like, I understand the frustration. Like, it sucks watching this team struggle on offense, but like, he's literally trying to he's like, with like a second stick to try to rub together to try to create that fire. It's versus a guy like Matt Patricia right now, who doesn't have a Zippo. He's got a freaking blowtorch ready to start a fire. Like, those are those things where, like, yeah, I understand the frustration. It's year 6. Where is it already? And all this other stuff. Of Jim Schwartz getting every single benefit possible with that defense of already having Myles Garrett, already having Denzel Ward, and then he gets, the Tyson Campbell trade worked out great so far. He's already got Grant Delpit. He gets to draft Mason Graham. He gets to draft Carson Schwarzenegger. They had JOK. They're hopefully going to get JOK back. Devin Bush. They got all this talent. Mike Hall in the second round. All these defensive ends that they've drafted, and Alex Wright and Isaiah McGuire, and like Kevin Stefanski's over here like getting very little, and like we're wondering. And then there's people that are like going, "Well, Jim Schwartz should be the head coach." Well, yeah, he's got all the talent. Like, what is he going to do with his offense? So, like, that's the one thing where I sit there and go, yeah, if Kevin Stefanski suddenly like Ohio State's offensive coordinator, I suspect he's going to be pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, and not to go back and start another Joe Woods discussion. I remember taking so much blank.
Most overhated coach in Browns history, I think,
ever. And it's so funny because people are like, see, Jim Schwartz is so much better. The amount of money they put into the defense, especially the weakest points, they had no defense. They had Myles Garrett on the front line. That was it. Okay. Jim Schwartz comes in. They get Za'Darius. They get Dalvin Tomlinson. Yep. They get Maurice Hurst. They get Shelby Harris. They do all of these things like, oh, I told you Joe Woods sucked. What? He got talent. He got
Malik. He got the Maliks, including the one that was like between mental breakdowns for a functional season. Like, and I hope for his sake he's doing well. But like, it was insane, and they had a top 15 defense with that crew. Like, it was genuinely crazy. But as far as college goes, I was gonna say I know you're a fan of Alabama's quarterback,
Ty Simpson. Yes,
Ty Simpson is pretty good. What I really sort of enjoy watching those two is the combination of Ty Simpson to Ryan Williams. They seem to have unbelievable chemistry.
Yeah,
not to mention Ryan Williams has incredible hands, but like
those
two just freaking those guys make it look very easy. And obviously, my biggest concern with Ty Simpson, who I think is very smart, I think he processes really well and does a lot of really good things, is just going to be the lack of experience. He's going to be a one-year starter. That always, even though he looks very advanced for being a one-year starter, one-year starter worries me. And that's the thing where I get worried about a couple of these guys. Like the same thing with Moore from Oregon. I grant he's super impressive. But again, limited starts. And this is where I sort of end up like, one, every week I seem to find another quarterback who's at least interesting. And then two, like I keep sort of drifting back to the TCU kid, Hoover, because he's played a ton of football and does a whole bunch of good things that I'm really interested in. I'm sort of curious to see, where he's going to sort of end. Curious to see if he ends up at the Senior Bowl or those type of things, if he's a guy who sort of crushes it from that standpoint and he becomes sort of a riser through the process, because every time I watch him, I'm impressed by his ability and in addition to his confidence, but like even the USC kid, a couple of those throws he's making are unbelievable. Like he's another guy I don't think is coming out anytime soon, but like nevertheless, my biggest takeaway I watched a ton of college football is the quarterback position in general, just in general across college football, and then translating to the next level is in really, really good hands. There are a ton of good players, and I think there are going to be a number of guys who get drafted in the mid rounds who end up being outplaying their draft pick, and we get sort of another Dak Prescott guy where he's a 4th round pick, even though I really like Dak Prescott that year. That sort of ends up being a long-term starter. And I'm not advocating that the Browns take that approach and sit there and take a bunch of mid-round guys and hope for the best. Yeah, I just think that's going to be something to monitor as this process goes along, because I think the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of those guys that are successful.
How sold are you that this team, and I mean, obviously if there's a guy there, they're going to take him, right? But do you think it's like a no matter what situation, they're going to come out of the first round with a quarterback? Or do you think, I mean, obviously the rest of the season is going to dictate, because if one of the kids plays well enough, then obviously, everything's going to be on the table. But say the season ended today, okay? Shedeur never really gets much of a shot. We don't really know anything about him. Dillon is kind of what he is. Do you think this team goes the veteran route and then gives the kids another year? Do you think they are mandated by ownership to get a quarterback in the first round? Do you think they want to get a quarterback in the first round? Or do you think everybody's good to punt for a year, give the kids a full year and maybe a little bit better cockpit to pilot, and then we'll tackle quarterback, once the Deshaun numbers are completely off the books? Or not completely off the books, but the bulk of it.
If I take Jimmy Haslam at his word, he's not rushing this thing. Mm-hmm. I assume that the Browns are going to operate as if they love a guy, they're going to go get him. Does that mean they'll give up 3 first-round picks or anything like that? God only knows. But their whole process is always, if we really love a guy, we're going to go get him. So, or if they love a guy at the pick, we're going to go get him. But I don't think that they're going to force it. I think they will take an approach similar to last year in terms of being patient and sort of let the board come to them, because 1, that worked really, really well. Yeah. And 2, because they need a whole lot of things. I'm going to make this point. Like, if you believe in reality, the Browns were not going to take Jackson Dart in the top 10. That was never a consideration. The consideration was trade up and go get him. Now, had they done that, the opportunity cost was enormous. Mm-hmm. And it would have involved players that you probably really like, or not picks that became players you really, really like. So you have to sort of factor that in to, okay, we have Jackson Dart. We're really excited about him, but also these other guys are not here. And now those are problem areas we now have to address. And you can ultimately make the argument and get by with, well, we have the quarterback. I don't know. I personally, I don't think it would have been worth it. I think they're better off with those players. And if the Browns don't love a situation like they love a quarterback, I think they are significantly better off being patient. And we'll see. The offensive line situation is always weird because, again, I'm trying. There are some guys I'm intrigued by, including, like, I was watching the left tackle for Illinois yesterday. I find him very intriguing. Unfortunately, I have to wait till freaking February and March to get athletic testing on these guys before I can really get all the information, which is really difficult, assuming they test. But like last year, up until like February and March, people were talking about Armand Membu as a second-round pick. Yep. And then he goes 6th overall. So like at some point, we could see somebody fly up the board. But if I'm just looking at it sort of right this second in terms of the offensive line is sort of middle of the first, and then there's a whole lot of guys. Mm-hmm. I'm probably looking at the wide receivers. I'm probably looking at, obviously, depending on where they pick, and we're going to see where this team's going to sort of work itself out. If they're in the middle of the first round as opposed to, if they're in the top 10, like if they're in the top 10, I could, and his medical checks out and everything goes well, I could see this team taking Jordan Tyson being like, yeah, we want to get way better on offense and make this set up a situation so the quarterback's in a better spot. Or if they're in the middle of the first round, Mekhi Lemon or Carnell Tate or somebody I'm not thinking of, if it's a Denzel Boston, if it's a Chris Brazil, if it's somebody else, the wide receiver position is sort of overperforming expectations most people had for this class. Like most people thought this wide receiver class was going to be worse than last year's. And then everybody was going to sort of be waiting for 2027, which will feature Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, Coleman from Auburn, Wingo from Texas, like these luminary type receiver talents that everybody's going to want, where you can see multiple guys go in the top 5, 10, whatever. But this class is the prospective class, because some of these guys may change their minds or decide not to go or whatever, looks really strong right now. And there are a lot of guys out there that could make you sort of interested in a situation where you take a receiver with that first pick and then really hammer home the offensive line, where, again, I can't judge too early in terms of just how deep it is. Just messing around with stuff, I see a lot of guys that can sort of be tackles and guards. Some of this comes down to what the Browns really want in terms of style and those things. But, like, I do see a path where they can get a whole lot of linemen. And obviously the problem is, like, okay, we draft a whole bunch of linemen, but, like, what are we going to do until they're ready to go? And those questions you have it with free agency and hopefully Cam Robinson healthy and all that stuff, being a guy you can sign as an insurance policy. Hopefully Luke Whippler can be the center they need him to be for next year. Those type of things where I can sort of see how this becomes really interesting from an offensive line standpoint based on the class is intriguing, and then sort of set it up. But, like, obviously that's really frustrating if you sit there and you're like, well, we really need a quarterback and we're still waiting another year or whatever it is. And then the other question is, well, what does that really look like for the veterans, like, that are going to be available? Because, like, Mac Jones is somebody who's bandied about now. One, I don't think San Francisco's in any hurry to get rid of him because he may or may not be better than Brock Purdy right this second.
Well, and two, just on your deal though, right?
I don't think so. I think he's on 2.
Okay.
And then the other part is, like, do you really want to throw seemingly a decent amount of money at one of those, or do you want to sort of wait for your own guy? So then you're sort of back in this, what do I really want to do type thing. And that's tricky. So, like, that's why if you're the Browns, you're sitting there going, please, Dylan Gabriel, Shooter Sanders, be good enough to sort of allow for us to not have to force something.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. Now I'm gonna ask you this right after I give you mine, but I would like to know if there's one prospect that you could just plug and play on the Browns right now, who would that be? And again, I like Shedeur, okay, and we still have some games to see of Dylan Gabriel, but to be perfectly honest with you, I don't know how many more young skill guys this offense needs just yet. So I'm leaning more offensive line, and then obviously wide receiver we need. Like, we need wide receiver, young or not young. And I feel like it's so expensive in free agency that wide receiver in the draft, despite it's adding more to the offense, I think that makes more sense to me right now than quarterback. I like Francisco. I want to say it's Mauigoa.
No,
or
it's not.
Maua.
No, it's really messed up in terms of, like, he pronounces it with an S as opposed to a G. It's like Maui Soa or something. And I think he goes by Cece. And you're thinking of Francis, like Maui Soa or something. It's driving me nuts already because he's interesting. He's a talented player.
Doesn't he kind of give you Penny Sewell vibes, dude? He's a
big man. He's
got big feet. Yeah.
He's interesting. I'm curious to see. This is where please, all offensive linemen test athletically. I really like the information on, like, your agility and your shuttle times and stuff like that.
Okay.
He's a mean kid, like him, and Isaiah World is another kid who's just mean.
Yeah, it's the Oregon kid, right?
Yeah. From Nevada to Oregon, playing left tackle. He's an angry man. I like those kids because I feel like the kids who have those angry minds, like the vicious mindset is something I can work with, as opposed to getting sort of an offensive line technician who you sort of have to try to get to be more motivated as a run blocker. Like that stuff drives me nuts. I like the guys who have, don't get me wrong, pass protection is incredibly valuable and incredibly important, but there's part of me that always would rather have the nasty cuss that I'm trying to teach pass protection to. And I say this even as Wyatt Teller drives me insane at times, but I can still appreciate his mentality to that. But if you're asking me, who would I want on this team right now? It's Jordan Tyson. Jordan Tyson is so damn good. Jordan Tyson, who are they playing this past week? Regardless, they are playing a Big 12 game.
Yeah.
And the defense, Jordan Tyson is 1, hobbled. 2, everybody knows he's getting the ball and they can do nothing about it. And he's just making plays or drawing PIs, or the amount of nuance he has, the way he uses his body to play the ball. He just sets up stuff real well. And this is where I sit there and go, man, I really hope he's not going to be Marvin Harrison again. He's got something like 50% of the receiving yards too. Like he's absolutely killing it. And I don't think I don't think Levitt's very good. I think he's a really good athlete who just chucks it. But like, he's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like that game was like Arizona State goes up. The other team crawls their way back. And it's like, okay, now we can go back to throwing back to Jordan Tyson because now he's going to close this game out because the game's back in doubt. And like, I liked him last year quite a bit. I liked what he's done this year. His production, the stuff I look for, the production is out of this world. He broke out super early, which is what you want. Again, the athletic testing is going to be a question, but I'll be curious to see what he measures in. He's listed 6'2" and 200 and some pounds. So those are all things I like, but he is a beast in terms of the wide receiver position and just a guy that I look for and just be able to plug in. And that's like where I'm sort of leaning right now. Don't get me wrong. I like Miami's offensive tackle. There are a bunch of guys I'm intrigued by. I like the 2 kids. I'm interested in the 2 kids from Utah. I'm interested in Isaiah World. There are a number of guys I'm trying to get eyes on.
You just need more info.
I need more info, but like if you're sitting there and going, well, the Browns are picking like 6th, I may or may not have been in a simulator knowing that they're at 6, and Jordan Tyson's sitting on the board. Like that feels like a great situation. I don't even know if he's going to last that long, but whatever.
Well, let me ask you this: what kind of workout numbers would be the ones that would deter you? Like, what would you have to see? Like a bad 3 cone or a bad 40? Bad 10-yard split?
No, I mean like the one. I don't think he's going to run a 3 cone because no one ever does, and I hate them all for it because it's such a good test. If he's running like in the 4.6s, I get a little bit nervous. But if he's just in the 4.5s, like given the style of like here's like Marvin Harrison is the thing that scares me. Not that I don't think Marvin Harrison's going to be a good player, but like for where they picked him, he's not what he should be. However, you've got a bunch of guys out there like JSN and Ibuka who are not speed guys, but they're just really good. They understand the angles and they just get open and make plays. Like if that is what you're going to get, and that's where I like, if Jordan Tyson is that guy, if Mekhi Lemon is that guy, I like him a lot too. He's really good for USC.
Yeah. He reminds me, he even looks like JSN. He just has that build to him, that look.
Yeah. So like, as long as I'm not going to find out that Jordan Tyson is actually 5'11" and 195 pounds, like I don't know what would really scare the crap out of me. More than anything, I just want a clean bill of health from the doctors because I think he broke his collarbone and did a couple other things where I sit there and go, just give me the thumbs up that he's going to be good and I don't have to worry about these things because the kid is really good.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, Pete, it's been a splendid 2 hours on this Victory Tuesday. I appreciate the time as always. And guys, thank you for sticking around in the chat. A couple updates from the chat. I know that we had Mac Jones is on a 2-year, I want to say $7.5 million deal with incentives to push it to 11. So you were right on that. It's a 2-year deal for Mac Jones. And then there was somebody else that said something and I missed it. I apologize. But guys, thank you so much for sticking with us in the chat. We appreciate it so much. We love being here for you guys and being with you guys. And Anytime we get to celebrate a victory, it's always a good thing. So, Pete, once again, thank you, my good sir. Look forward to this New England game this weekend. Get hopefully, some more answers on Dillon Gabriel and this young offense. Anything in particular you're hoping to see this weekend?
Just throw the ball down the field towards the guy in the Browns uniform and see what happens. Like I just want to see. I just want to see Dillon Gabriel. Whatever letting loose looks like for Dillon Gabriel, I want to see him do that.
Love it. I honestly want to see the same thing. Just for God's sake, just stretch the defense. Just at least pretend. Just do me that one favor. All right, Pete. Always good, homie. You take it easy, and I'll see you next Tuesday. All right. And thank you again, guys. We'll catch you guys next week.